Hey guys, Lytane here, and today I'm going to be having a look at one of the most iconic characters in all of gaming, Mario Jumpman Mario. But not in his original game, no. I'm going to be taking a look at the first time that he and Luigi paired up together in order to do an RPG-like game called Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Mario's first appearance in a video game was as Jumpman on his way to save his girlfriend Pauline from Donkey Kong in 1981. Since then, Mario has been in over 200 video games as both the main character, a cameo, or part of a collection of characters, which is just insane. But let's fast forward to 2003, when Mario finally teamed up with his brother Luigi to go on an epic quest. An ambassador from the Bean Bean Kingdom meets with Princess Peach only to reveal themselves as the evil Cackletta and her trusty sidekick and fan favorite, Fawful. They steal her voice and replace it with explosive letters. So naturally they summon Mario to go to the Bean Bean Kingdom to save her voice, and he rushes off to help, with Luigi getting caught up on the way. When they get to the castle, they find Bowser there on his weekly kidnapping of Princess Peach, but he finds out her current problem and he doesn't want to kidnap that. So he decides that he'll get her voice back so he can kidnap later, because only he is allowed to mess with Princess Peach, and vows to help out, even putting aside his feud with Mario until then. They set off to the Bean Bean Kingdom and Luigi accidentally gets dragged along for the adventure, but it hits a snag pretty early on when Bowser's airship is attacked and brought down. Now Mario and Luigi have to team up, travel the Bean Bean Kingdom, learn some new skills, make some new friends, and find a way to stop Cackletta. Oh, and find out what happened to Bowser. I'm sure he is fine, as we all go on this saga full of superstars. Superstar Saga is a very different type of Mario game, with the majority of them being side-scrolling platformers. This one is an RPG, and instead of just controlling Mario and or Luigi, you get to control both at the same time. The way that this game works is that one button is dedicated towards Mario and the other one is dedicated to Luigi, and depending on where they are, front or back, it doesn't really matter because you'll be controlling both brothers at the same time for the majority of the game. So depending on who is at front and who is behind, that all determines your different moves. So if Mario is at front and you press the jump button, Mario jumps. If Luigi's at the back and he presses jump, he jumps at the back. So it's really interesting, and it does confuse your head a little bit the first time you start playing, especially when you're running and then you have to jump over platforms like this. So you have to tap one button, then the next one in order to get over an obstacle or to jump up the platforms. Also, as you go on in the game, you do collect different items and different power-ups that, depending on who's in front and who's behind, change the way the game plays. For example, you learn a super jump technique, which if Luigi is at the front, he jumps forward on top of Mario and he bounces up high. Or if the other way, if Mario's at the back and then he jumps on top of Luigi and then they do a helicopter spin. I think that's actually the other way around, but my memory is a little bit bad. So depending on who is at the front, who is at the back, your moves change. And this also carries on into the fighting mode of the game whenever you get into a battle. Just like a lot of typical RPGs, it is a turn-based battle system where you'll get an attack, then your opponent will get an attack, and so on and so forth until the battle is won. Once again, Mario is controlled by one button and Luigi is controlled by another. So when you're doing any kind of fighting, you select your jump, say that you're going to attack with Mario, you're pressing one button, and then when it's Luigi's turn, you're pressing the other button. But this might seem a little bit confusing, and it does get more confusing as the battle goes on, because after your attack and the enemy has theirs, there is an opportunity to either dodge or counter attack depending on the enemy and the move that they're doing, and each brother is still controlled by that same button. So if a Goomba decides to rush and attack Mario, you have to jump with the A button to get over him. If he decides to run at Luigi, you have to press the B button in order to jump over it. Sometimes attacks can hit both brothers. Sometimes there's fake outs, like one will run towards Luigi and then switch out and try and hit Mario. There's all different tells and there's all different ways that you can figure out which brother is going to get hit, especially if you played the game a little bit. It might take you a few times the very first time, but this mechanic is really interesting, and it's gone through the majority of the game because all different enemies have all different attacks, which means all different types of counters and dodges. You will have to be learning every single time you go into a new area or fight a new bad guy, and the bosses do the same thing with multiple attacks. So it's all really interesting, and it stays fresh throughout the entirety of the game. Also, if you manage to perform these dodges in a very specific way, you can cause a counter attack. So once again, if that that Goomba is running underneath you and you jump, if you jump a little bit early, you'll land on his head and deal damage, which cancels the attack of the Goomba, and it also hits him, which possibly could kill him, making the fight that much more easy. So as you play through, you get these different moves as well that you'll be defending with, as well as all different moves to attack with, and because they're all dedicated to those one button presses, it's all really simple but also really fleshed out, and it's so well done. In order to spice things up, there are also some special moves called bros attacks, and these are a lot of fun to use. Every time you learn a new skill in the world, it is very closely followed by a new bros attack. So when you learn the super jump and the spin jump, you get their respected special attack to use in battles. These attacks use both of your bros, so if one of them is knocked out, you can't do them, and you have to push certain buttons at the right time in order to pull off a big attack. If you don't know how to use these attacks, there's also a training mode of sorts where you can spend a different amount of BP on these attacks in order to make them harder. So if you select the very easiest version of the attack, both the button prompts and everything is in a slow down thing, so you can learn how to do the attack. This also causes it to deal less damage. But then if you do the ultra fast proper way, that everything is in one fluid motion and you do all the button presses correctly because you've memorized it, then it deals the most damage. The best part about these attacks though, besides being very powerful, is that after you use them enough, you unlock an advanced version of the attack. This changes up the attack buttons, which changes the nature of the attack and who it will hit. These advanced techniques are usually a lot stronger and better than their normal counterpart, though slightly harder to pull off. There is nothing in this game that hints towards these special moves either, and when you unlock one for the first time, it feels like you've earned it. You've mastered the move, and now you get to have a more powerful one. I have known people that never knew about these moves or didn't unlock them until very far into the game because they rarely use the bros attacks in battle, and I think that's an amazing thing on the part of the game creators. It's a reward that they don't tell you. It's good to hit stuff and all, but you need a reason, and that's where the story comes in, and damn, is it actually good. For the most part, it is pretty simple. Peach is got her voice, gone, and now Mario and Luigi have to stop it, and they have to explore the different areas in Bing Bing Kingdom in order to get to Cackletta. It's all pretty stock standard, really, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. Because it's such a simple story, they had so much more fun with the characters and the world around it. Everybody that you meet, every main character, every NPC, every side character has a story, has a fleshed out background, has some jokes, and it's so much fun. When you meet somebody for the first time, you want to talk to them because they have such interesting dialogue. Unlike most RPGs where it's just filler NPC crap bullshit, these ones have something funny to say, something to do with the world that you're in, or just a joke, because it's that kind of game. Every main character that you meet, some of them are reoccurring as well, have certain things like the Prince of Bing Bing Kingdom does this hair flick where the whole screen turns white because he's so beautiful, and it's so silly, but it's there. There's also optional characters like Professor Egad from the Luigi's Mansion game. He turns up because he owns a coffee bean house. Whatever. That if you select certain beans and you do these brews, you get special one-off power-ups from him, and they're really cool, and they not break the game, but they do make the game very different and very interesting just by having them. And they're all references to other Nintendo properties as well. And his entire cameos and all of that stuff is just fun. The times where you meet Bowser, even though Bowser has his own separate story, it's so much fun. Bowser, after the attack, got amnesia, so he doesn't remember who he is. He just sort of remembers that he doesn't like people dressed in red and blue overalls. So when he meets Mario, he's like, I don't know who you are, but I don't like you. And it's so much fun. They just play on it all, and it's I can't describe how fun it is. Everything makes you laugh, everything makes you smile, and because it's so simple, they just could go crazy with everything. The two main characters themselves are also insanely expressive, with so many different facial expressions, body movements, and everything that you can tell exactly what they're feeling. When Luigi is scared, he's cowering or he's on the floor crawling. When Mario is excited because he feels strong, he pulls up his fist to the world. It's all things like that, and they're so emotive, especially for a GBA game with its limited sprite capability. This is so well done. Every time the heroes do something, they feel like they're doing it because they have these emotions and they have all this stuff. And it's even better because for the most part they're mutes. Even though they do have a little bit of talking where they're like, they sound roughly Italian. Sometimes there's random words that you can understand in their thing. The majority of the time they don't actually speak. They just do some movements or they jump or something like that to prove who they are. And even with the limited dialogue, even though it's not actually words, you still know what's going on. They are so well done. Oh gosh, I can't praise the graphics and animation enough. Bean Bean Kingdom is a character in of itself as well, where there are some staples from Mario like the grass world, water world, desert world, big castle and such. They are done in a different way. We aren't in the Mushroom Kingdom, it's Bean Bean, so everything has a bean shape to it, which makes it feel so different and unique. As you may have noticed as well, the graphics for the rest of the game are so nice. The detail in the sprites for the world is so good and brimming with personality and color, even like the Chuck Woods, which is so creepy with all of its weird faces. This game also has a good sense of progression as well. As you're learning these new moves and new mechanics, you get to use them on the world and it changes the way the games play. Because of this, if you go back into an area that you've previously gone to, you can find new things, such as like an area that you could not access before, maybe a shortcut to a different area, or it leads to some unique items because you couldn't reach a certain spot before. And this is really fun. It gives it sort of a Metroidvania feel to it, and it gives you reason to go back to some of these areas even if you've already completed them. Being an RPG as well, there's also a leveling up system, of course, where every time you level up you get some predetermined stats and, you know, your attack, your defense, your speed and all that kind of stuff. Your stash points, which is, I think it's pretty cool, a critical idea, like they have a mustache point, which actually does, I think it's critical hits, and it gives you a discount at the shop for some reason. I guess the shopkeeper's like, damn, that's a good mustache, I'm gonna give you a deal. It's so silly. But the fun part about this is that every time after you level up, there's also a roulette that you can do. So if you select a certain stat, you then press the button on the roulette, and when you stop it, you get that many extra points in your stats. It's pretty cool. It's a unique idea, and it doesn't overpower you or anything, because if you decide, oh, I'm only going to upgrade my attack for the entire game, then every time you do it, the numbers get worse and worse until you're only going to be rolling ones most of the time, where the roulette will have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, maybe a 2. But then if you did that a couple times and you went down to defense, maybe defense has like 4s and 5s most of the time, so you have a higher chance of getting a good number there. So it pays to even out your stats, because then you get a good general feel of everything. But if you just want to focus on one, you're going to be underpowered, so it doesn't break the game. It's really, really well done, and as you level up, you do feel more powerful, because every time you go back to a new area, every time you go back to an old area, you can just clobber everybody because you've just leveled up. Even a couple times is enough, because by the end of the game, you're not going to be too high of a level, but you'll be leveled up enough in order to take down the final boss. Which brings me to the last topic of today, the bosses, and most of them are pretty fun and unique, where the majority of time they are introduced as a character before you fight them, so it's not just a random enemy that you just walk into an area and you have to fight. Though that does happen, it is not as frequent as most RPGs. You get to learn a little bit about them. Sometimes you even do a quest for them, or sometimes you do something else that triggers them to become the bad guy. The bosses themselves are usually more difficult than the enemies, of course, as they should be, and some of them are actually very tough, where you have to learn some pretty good defensive techniques or dodging techniques in order to get past them. I will say the majority of them aren't too hard, especially if you've leveled up enough whilst playing through the main area of the level before you reach the boss. So the majority of them aren't too crazy. Maybe you'll die the first time as you're learning the boss's patterns, but after that you should be fairly good. There are a few bosses that are going to out you, especially like the last boss, because Cackletta is pretty difficult. Some of the bosses when you fight Bowser and Bandit are also a little bit difficult, at least in my opinion. So there are a few battles that maybe you'll find hard that I didn't, and maybe I found hard that you did, but it's all about that timing of the defense and the dodging, because if you can get that down pat, the majority of these bosses are easy because you won't take any damage, but then you have to be really good at it, and sometimes you can make a mistake, and if you do, you get punished pretty badly with damage. So this game rewards you for being good at using the mechanics, and then it punishes you really hard hard if you fail those, especially on the bosses, because those are the ones that they want you to be good at. I should make these episodes a little bit harder to figure out, because I know that you know that I know that I'm going to say that Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga is worth it. It is such an amazing game. It is so much fun. The characters have so much life to them. The sprites are epically done. The story is simple but well conceived and well executed. Everything that the bros do is just fun. The gameplay is good. The sense of progression is good. The fact that you learn new power-ups and you get to use them both inside of battle and outside of battle is good. The control scheme is a little bit silly to figure out when you first start playing with it, because you're going to have to jump with both brothers at the same time or like at separate times. That does get a little finicky, especially at the start, but it becomes second nature before too long. So this game was so good, in fact, that it even got a remaster for the 3DS, and I haven't played it, so I don't know the main differences between the two games, but it's so popular that it did get a remake, so that must be worth something. In fact, this game was the second GBA game that I ever owned, and I've played through it so many times, discovering new things every time, because there are hidden areas, hidden blocks, and hidden beans throughout the entire kingdom, and I've never 100% this game, even though I've played through it about 1,000,000 times. So I highly recommend it, either this version, maybe the 3DS version, because it's the newest one of it. Regardless, play this game. It is so much fun and a good way to kickstart the Mario and Luigi saga. So guys, tell me what you think about Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you even play it? Because I know a lot of people didn't, because it was on a handheld, and a lot of people are console gamers, so whatever. I say play it, and then let me know what you think about it in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!